Culdesac is the first car-free neighborhood built from scratch in the US, and we designed it from the ground up to make a great neighborhood where residents wouldn't need to own a private car. There's so many benefits by being car-free. It makes things lower cost. And also, you're happier when you're not stressed in a car. It's also healthier, and you're more likely to meet your neighbors. So we help people and cities break free from car dependency. And we're not just creating a neighborhood, we're creating a revolution in urban living. Because we don't have to fill our land with a parking lot, it makes a much more pleasant living space. And we have 55% open space instead of a sea of asphalt. And our residents have great amenities like a restaurant and micro retailers and a coffee shop rather than more parking. And our residents use a portfolio of transportation options so they can choose the best method of getting around. All of our residents get a free unlimited light rail pass. Residents get a free electric bike, and there's Lyft, there's Waymo, there's car rental for things like weekend trips, and there's also great shops here. And collectively, it means that our residents are more connected to the community and they're happier as a result. So much of where we live and how we get around defines our costs. We're not actually anti-car. If anything, we're anti-car dependency, where people need to buy a car and all the costs of that. Cars are so expensive, and the average monthly cost for a car are like $800. You have the car payment, the insurance, the repairs, etc. And this takes away from other things that people can enjoy. It's a very different way of life. It takes a bit to get used to get comfortable with like, oh, I'm gonna wait for the Lyft. But then you realize that actually this is the most freeing thing possible because you don't have to worry about repairs, gas, and parking spaces. And that's part of why this lifestyle feels great. Culdesac is located in Tempe, Arizona. It's situated right on the light rail in the heart of a vibrant local community. This was one of the lowest usage light rail stops in the system, and now it's going to be one of the higher ones. We started with the 17-acre rectangle, and we said, let's show how we can build walkable neighborhoods in the US in the 2020s. And instead of starting with an existing neighborhood and trying to retrofit, we said, what would be the best way to make this neighborhood? And this could be a role model for places all over. We don't think it's perfect, but this is much better than the typical type of housing we build. There's lots of landscaping, there's beautiful corridors with interesting vistas, and lots of amenities, including some of the most important types. Having a corner market for residents has been one of the most popular features. Having a great restaurant that's also the gathering spot of the community. We have a plaza where we host a night market. We have a bike store, an esthetician, and a vintage clothing store, and a Japanese home goods store. One of the residents is running a yoga studio, an art store, and there's a candle shop and a podcast studio. But also it's important to be connected to the broader city. We actually worked with Tempe to build a protected bike lane that goes from the light rail station on site a mile north to Tempe Marketplace, which is an outdoor mall that has 12 restaurants and a Super Target and a Best Buy and doctor's offices. And this is 17 acres, and so at that scale, you can have a lot of important amenities here, but you could never have everything, right? Notably, we don't have a school, we don't have a hospital, etc. Our vision is to build something that's much larger that can really show how something even bigger could work when you design it for people. And with larger scale, we can do more interesting things with transportation. And we have studios up to 3 bedrooms, and every ground floor apartment is wheelchair accessible, and all the commercial spaces are accessible. It's been great watching the community. Now we have over 100 residents. We'll have a couple hundred by the summer, and ultimately 1,000. We're gonna have for sale projects at Culdesac in the future, but right now Culdesac is for rent.
I moved into Culdesac on December 1st. I've had a great time so far. It's been amazing. I've met many friends, and it's like a little community, a little family, and I really love that. It's not just like your average apartment complex. When I first heard car free, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like a big change since I was used to using my car for a lot of things. But after living here, it's been super easy, especially getting the e-bike. I love my e-bike. I take it with me to go to class every day, and it's so much nicer, especially just traffic in general is awful. And just being able to see things that you wouldn't normally with your car is amazing. Also finding little hidden parks and places to sit, have lunch, things like that, just connecting with the environment a lot more. I think the hugest part about living at Culdesac for me has really been the community. It has just completely changed my life for the better. It's really great and I appreciate it so much.
So from a pure housing perspective, we're priced similar to other new projects, but what people get is different. We should think about housing costs as housing plus transportation costs. So some of our residents, they're saving a lot of money because they'll take light rail to different places, and instead of spending the average $800 a month on a car, they're spending much less. But then there's others that instead they're actually using things like Lyft and Waymo as a luxury experience because they think it's just a better lifestyle. And today you spend a little bit more if you're taking lots of Lyfts and Waymos for normal commute patterns. But what's interesting is that the way trends are going, the costs are actually going to come down a lot. So autonomous vehicles and AV ride hail in particular is something to pay attention to. And this is going to create many millions more people that don't have a private vehicle in the US. There's so many benefits by being car free. It makes things lower cost. And also you're happier when you're not stressed in a car. You're more flexible. You could choose the right method, right? If you drive a car somewhere and then your friends want to go grab a drink at a restaurant, you can't go. And it's also healthier and you're more likely to meet your neighbors. Cars are one of the reasons why the country's become so lonely, especially with adults. And the best thing that we can be doing for climate is getting as many people as possible living in a walkable neighborhood. And transportation is the biggest source of emissions. And by being car free, it makes that much lower. And it's also about the knock-on effects where when we don't need to build all of these parking spaces, we can build things closer together. And so the impact is even greater than it might seem at first. Our goal is to make cities better, and we're showing a new way to build neighborhoods that builds the kind of housing people want, where they're happier and healthier. And it's the kind of neighborhoods that we built a long time before cars, and we're building them again using modern transportation technologies. More than half the US wants to live in a walkable neighborhood, including 92% of Gen Z, but yet far fewer than 10% of people do. And it's because we're not building enough. And that's what we're doing at Culdesac, is bringing those back. And that's one of the reasons why we came to Tempe, because if it worked here, it's gonna work all over. And we want to build more, but we also want to inspire cities and other developers to show people that you can build these neighborhoods successfully now.
Subscribe to Exploring Alternatives, and please share this video if you liked it. You can also follow and find out more about Culdesac on their website and on Instagram. Thanks for watching.